Awesome. Now we're going to over-delivery now. Over-delivery. This concept of over-delivery. Now I know as a poor person or somebody who grows up with disadvantages, I've discovered, as an example, we had one guy that worked in my office years ago. And this guy had worked in the fast food industry. Previously he was homeless. Mm-hmm. He had no discernible skills, no degree, no privilege. Mm-hmm. But what he had was his hands and the ability to control his mind. He wasn't a monkey. Mm-hmm. And so he said, what can I do to get from here to there? Mm-hmm. And I said, well, if you'll exceed my expectations every day, what I'll do is I'll start to get a bias. And then I'll start to go, well, who do we need to give the extra project to? This guy. Who do we need to, give a raise to? This guy.
How do we? Indispensability.
And so he embodied this habit of over delivery. And a lot of people have asked him, well, how did you get from where you were to where you want to be? It was just this concept of over delivering. Have you noticed that this is a byproduct of growing up without advantage? Is people who begin to become almost to get where they, just to get to baseline. If you're the upper middle class guy who's attractive, just to get to where you are, I've got to over-deliver just to get to where you are. Have you noticed that that's become a habit?
I do. Yes, I agree with what you're saying. You might then ask me, Michael, you're having an experience. What do you see when you talk to young people? You got many of them working for you. You talk to them, not good. So then you say, okay, well, tell me what that's like.
Are you
stupid? Lazy, entitled.
Well, let me ask you this.
Should I continue?
You absolutely, and I think.
Should I continue?
Let me ask you this though: don't you think though that once the government spigot, once it runs out, let's give an example. We just keep pumping money into the system.
It's run out.
I know. But
we're broke.
Once we stop printing money and buying our own bonds, once somehow something happens where the fall of the currency happens, let's say, okay, money's not worth anything anymore, something. At that point, don't you think people then all of a sudden gain the advantage of being disadvantaged again?
Yeah.
So really, we have to fall before we get back up, right?
Pain is a great teacher. In the end, Clay, sadly, perhaps, people respect wisdom but obey pain.
That's why I taser myself every morning. Okay, now the final point on it, principle I want to ask you as far as the advantage of growing up with disadvantage. I feel like that people who started off at the bottom,
they're hungry folks.
They're hungry, and they realize that they need other people to help them. They need some mentors, not like they're waiting for the cavalry to come get them, but they realize they need to surround themselves with people they can have a mutually beneficial relationship.
They better stop surrounding themselves with people who are going to bring them down. Now, the biggest problem that disadvantaged folks have is who they're surrounding themselves with.
Do you believe the power of the mastermind Napoleon Hill talks about?
Do.
And so
but I also have been told by people who I respect and trust that if you're from the neighborhood and you leave the neighborhood to go off to jail and you come back to the neighborhood 5 years later, you're greeted with high fives. If, on the other hand, you're from the neighborhood and you go off to Harvard and you come back 5 years later, back to the neighborhood, you're shunned. Now, even if that's partially true.
Yeah. Now, question I have here for you on this concept of the mastermind. There's many authors that have written something. I'm going to paraphrase it, and our program observer can add it to the screen here. But you say your net worth is determined by your network. As an example, when I started my first business, I know that there was many people that I could no longer, many people that I could no longer associate with to grow my business, and many new people I had to begin to associate with, and they start to define your normal. So some action steps, 3 action steps.
Define your normal, define your acceptable. That which becomes acceptable becomes inevitable.
Whoa.
There you go.
Say it one more time. Just
that which becomes acceptable becomes inevitable. Mm-hmm. Now listen, if I go out, if I meet one of the people working here in the studio, and I go out to their car, and I say, "Hey, bro, your car's a mess. Your car's a mess, son. Is that car a mess today, or is that mess all the time?" Well, if it's a mess all the time, here's what I know: you got a sloppy car. Which means you got a sloppy life, son. You got a sloppy life. And you've normalized that.